Today we're going to be showing you how to replace the brake wire on a Bugaboo Cameleon. This is a Bugaboo Cameleon 2, that is the second generation of Bugaboo Cameleon. Bugaboo does not sell brake wires separately for the Bugaboo Cameleon 1 or 2, and so we will have to use parts that have been purchased from a bicycle repair shop. In this case, the customer does not have any of the old brake wire, which runs from here down to behind the back wheel, and has also lost the adjustment screw, which fits right here. What you will need to purchase are a brake wire. I have bought a Teflon coated brake wire, but a rust-free steel brake wire will work just as well. It's best to get one that is in some way protected against rust so that you can avoid the same problem occurring in the future. You will also need a length of brake wire housing, which can be measured and cut according to the length of the Bugaboo brake wire that you have removed from the stroller. I find it unnecessary to put stoppers on the ends, as stroller brakes do not undergo the same sort of pressure that bicycle brakes do. However, you will need one stopper, which we will be using to close off the other end of the brake line, as I will explain later on in this video. I have also purchased an adjustment screw because our customer has lost her adjustment screw. It is slightly longer, but it will fit for this job. In relation to tools, you will need a couple of pairs of pliers. It's good if one of them is rather good at cutting wire, and another could be needle-nosed, which will help in tying off the brake line later on. You will also need a screwdriver, and the job will be much easier if you have access to a Dremel. It might be possible to do the parts of the operation that I use the Dremel for without one, but life is much easier with a Dremel. We are going to start by unscrewing the brake at the top here. There are two small screws in the side that you can get out. I do not use a screw gun for this part because once I used a screw gun to replace the screws here, and it was too powerful and drilled the screws too far into the plastic, and I had to replace some of the parts. So it's not a lot of screwing, and it's easier to just use a regular screwdriver. After we remove these two screws here, the mechanism should more or less come out easily. As you can see, there are many parts to it. There's also this little metal piece here. If you need, you can take it out. Just remember which way it fits in. Okay, we're now going to fit the housing in through the side clips that hold it in place. Through the top one and through the bottom one. Pull it down. The housing will at the top fit right in here. We're going to leave it a little lower for now. Now we're going to begin attaching the brake line to the top mechanism and threading it through the housing. So you want to unwind. There are two heads on the wire. One that is a round cylinder like this, and another that looks like this. We need to keep this head on this end of the wire. This one we need to clip away. So now you're going to take your pliers, which are good at clipping, and clip away this head. It's important to have good pliers or something good at clipping this because you need an even cut. When you thread it, it's very important that all of these very small wires that make up this brake wire do not get untwisted and trapped within the housing. Okay, now we're going to thread this clipped end into the housing. You want to twist it the direction it twists a little bit, just to keep it all together. If this begins to come undone, remove the brake wire as quickly as you see it beginning to come undone and clip it above. You have a good deal extra brake wire to work with. I want to slip it inside and thread it through. See it emerging from the other side. So on. Now we're going to replace the separate pieces of the button part of the brake. And this can be a little bit tricky. You want to first put this small button in, then the spring, and then this cylindrical part of the wire goes into this recess here. And the hard part, let's see, this one was a little bit tight. So I'm going to press it in with a pair of pliers. The hard part is that the wire needs to go down into this valley, this recessed line, as you put the mechanism back together. And then it also needs to go through this little slit here. So this is a very fiddly mechanism. Okay, now if you've successfully placed that wire, you want to hold that tightly so you don't have to do that operation again. And then put this part in. These two parts that are sticking out on this white part sort of slide in under and inside. So on. And you hold it in place while you place your screws in. And manually screw them into place. This is again the part of the job that I would absolutely not recommend using a screw gun, because the plastic is not the strongest and it is very easy to just screw straight through the outer plastic piece. Now that you've put this mechanism back in place, you are going to pull this housing up so that it sits tightly there, and we can start on the lower part of the brake wire. You need to remove the wheel. There are two small metal pieces that you pinch together such that you can pull the wheel out. And then you need to take your adjustment screw and thread it onto the bottom of the line. And then fit it in here. This one is a little bit large, but you want this to fit in. Whichever sort of adjustment screw you have, you want it to fit as deeply in as it can go. And then screw the nut down. Then it will be in, shall we say, the loosest adjustment position in case you need to tighten it later on. The next step will be to remove this screw. Okay, now we need to remove this screw. I'm going to start by loosening it with a regular screwdriver because it's a little bit rusty and I don't want to strip it. And then I will use my screw gun. There's a nut underneath that you want to hold upwards. It just fell out. Okay. This allows you to better access the underside of this. And you will need to actually remove both wheels so that you can pull that brake part all the way up. Okay, I've now flipped the stroller over because I wanted to show you the underside of this mechanism. There is a cut slit part here, which the wire goes in, and then there is a recess here. And what we are going to try to do is to tie off the wire such that it holds in this recess here. To do this, we are now going to use that stopper that I said we would need. So the next part is that we need to take this stopper and we need to shave off about 1/3 to 1/2 of it from the side with the large hole down so that it's smaller. And this is the part where I suggested that you have a Dremel. Okay, now for the hardest part of the operation. What you want to do is take your stopper that you've sanded down to between 1/2 and 2/3 of its previous size and thread the wire through the small hole. Now you want to look at this part of the mechanism and hold this little circle on the bottom of the spring over the hole in the screw so that you know that the mechanism is in the right place. This will be the ideal resting position for the mechanism. What we are going to do is to tie a knot in the wire and then pull the knot into the housing. And we would like the housing to be positioned such that it will slide through this little slit and then fit from underneath into the recess that I showed you. So we're going to start tying this. It's best to get this just about accurate in terms of where you want it, but if there's a choice between having it slightly too long or slightly too short, you definitely want it a little bit too long because there are ways of dealing with that, while as too short might make you repeat the entire process. So let me see. What you need to do is use a pair of pliers to pull this knot tight. I already see that it's going to be slightly too long. And then you want to squeeze the knot a little bit flatter. Take this stopper and then holding with this recess part of your pliers such that you don't cut the wire. Put it around there and pull such that the knot fits into the stopper. Now you can slice off what is left of your wire. As tight up as you can without cutting any elements of the knot, because then the whole thing can just come undone. Now you need to fit the wire through the slit and sort of pull it down so that it comes out the bottom. And then you can pull downwards. And we're trying to get this knot again to go inside. You can also pull on the button to help pull the wire into position. You want it to fit as much into this black part at the bottom as possible. The reason for cutting the stopper is such that there's more room so that it can fit over this black ridge here. Okay, I can already see now that I've put a little bit too much slack into my wire, but hopefully that will be, it won't be so much that my adjustment screw won't be able to take care of it at the end. If it is too much slack for my adjustment screw, what you can do is tie another knot in this wire where in this area, but as close to this part as possible, such that it doesn't get caught up when it's trying to pull into this hole here. If you have another knot lower here that usually would take care of the problem. Now we're going to replace the screw here. The washer goes down first, then the spring over, and then the screw with this metal sheathing around the end. And you want to hold your washer flat side in into the bottom hole that is made for it, and then screw it in place. As I suggested might occur, it was necessary for me to tie a knot in this wire. You can see that I have it as low down to the mechanism as possible. Needle nose pliers are very helpful if this happens to you. One other thing that I wanted to show you before I finish this video is that if you feel it's too tight working in this area, there is another screw back here that you can remove. And if you remove this screw, then this black part can be taken out. It's not easy, but you can get it out with a screwdriver. Anyway, now all of my pieces are screwed back in place, and the brake line now functions.